anxiety with children. I want to talk a few minutes about maybe some of the things that drive anxiety with children, especially one thing, and then talk a little bit about some of the things we want to do in response to what drives anxiety in children. And some of the things I talk about are not necessarily specific just to children. We're going to be talking about some general principles of anxiety and how they apply to children. The first thing you need to know about anxiety, this is rule 1A really, is that anxiety is all about the unknown. Anxiety is all about the unknown and the fear of what will happen because of the unknown and how awful that will be. So we get kids who can be afraid of a lot of things, but you get parents who are afraid of a lot of things too. I hear people all the time use anxiety-based language, and they'll say things like, "Oh, if that happened to me, I couldn't handle it." What they're suggesting is if that situation were to occur to them, I guess life would be over for them. You know, they couldn't handle it. They would just fall apart. They would, you know, burst into flames. I'm not exactly sure what that happened to them, but they've got this idea that that would be the worst thing ever. And so anxiety is about the fear that the worst thing ever is going to happen. And so obviously, if that's what you think is going to happen, you want to avoid that as much as possible. And so that's what kids and adults do. So when they have anxiety, they look for ways to avoid the worst thing ever, whatever that might be. Whether it's speaking in front of people and what might happen, or going to school and what might happen to my family while I'm at school, or going to this birthday party and what might happen, because it might be the worst thing ever. I may not be able to recover. It may destroy me, essentially is what's happening with kids with anxiety. That's what they're thinking. At some level, that's the fear. So, anxiety is all about the unknown. So what we want to do is we want to make the unknown known. When we can recognize that the behavior is due to anxiety, what we want to do is we want to make the unknown known. Now, there's two major parts of that. One has to do with preparation. We want to prepare kids for the unknown so it's not unknown anymore. We want to help them anticipate what's going to happen. We do a lot of that already. For example, when kids are getting ready to go to school for the first time, we may take them to the school before school starts. In the summertime, point out that'll be your school. In the fall, that's your school. And then we may go before school is in session and we find out who their teacher is. And the schools do a good job of having the back to school night, so you go and you see the teacher and see the classroom, you look around. That makes the unknown known. And we want to do that as much as possible to prepare them so that they know what to expect, and to prepare them to expect to be successful in the situation. Because there's nothing more gratifying to a frightened child to go into a situation that's overwhelming and have things happen like they were prepared that they would happen. And then the child comes home and says, it was just like you said. This is what happened, and this is what happened, and this is what happened. And what do you think happens to the anxiety of a child when things happen as they were prepared to expect? Well, all of a sudden the unknown is much more known. And so we look for ways to do that. We also look for ways to help them understand how to deal with the worst case scenario. Because sometimes what they fear is something that they're not sure they can survive. What if I go out on the playground and nobody plays with me? See, that's all about fear, the fear of the unknown. Notice it started with what if. Lots of anxious statements start with what if. What if statements introduce fear and doubt. What if I go out on the playground and nobody plays with me? And that is so terrifying and so overwhelming that the child says, I don't want that to happen. I'm not even going to go outside because I don't want that to happen to me because it would be so awful. Well, we try to prepare them, and we also talk about the worst case scenario. And we say back to them, well, what if? What if nobody plays with you? What will you do? We walk them through the scenario. Well, what can you do if no one plays with you on the playground? What will happen? What will you do? How will that go? We help them anticipate. And often, when they realize that that's what the situation turns out to be, and that they won't be destroyed by it, and recess will end, and they'll come back in the building, and they'll go on with the rest of the day. That brings down their anxiety as well. So please remember that anxiety is about the fear of the unknown, and the best intervention for us is to help them make the unknown known, either through preparing them or helping them understand that even in the worst case, they'll survive.